Good evening, YouTube, brother West Coast. Oos.
Oos, brother Seventh, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. I see we have 200 disciples in the building tonight. This
Yes,
is the
sir.
Seventh Coast Dojo, brought to you by Sensei Seventh, West Coast Sensei. So, how's your week been, man?
Week has been okay, man. Over here in the West Coast, it's been pretty hit and miss when it comes to the weather. Definitely feeling the tale of two cities, in my opinion, when it comes to the weather. It's like one day you're bundled up, feeling like you in New York. I say that in tongue in cheek as far as the level of coldness. Then the next day, you feel like it's spring. You just come out with some shorts, some open toe sandals, or some slides for some of the brothers who rock with it. But overall, it's been all right, man. It's they're talking about another lockdown because of the cases of COVID that have apparently been going on. But you know, by and by, just trying to keep my head on level. As I'm navigating through the city. How about you, man?
You know, the same thing is kind of occurring over here in the East. New York, there's been a spike in cases as well. Rumors of another lockdown. They started early with the everything being closed by 10 p.m., including restaurants and or clubs, making sure they're closing down all these functions. Um,
Oh, you got that
Also,
too? Okay. we
yeah. Surprisingly enough, there's some places are still trying to push the envelope on the curfew, if you will, for venues, but I don't see that working in their favor in the long run, especially with the spike in COVID-19 cases. Also, another interesting thing that I'm starting to see more of is a little bit of panicking going on here in New York.
mm,
I think there was an article that recently dropped about unemployment ending December 26th. Initially it was reported on the 31st, I
hmm
believe, but now it's the 26th, right after Christmas. I noticed that there's been some YouTubers also talking about this, and I think that's being reflected, at least from where I'm positioned here in New York that a lot of people are taking it to heart, and now they're trying to scramble and get their affairs in order.
Last
So,
minute.
yes, sir.
Man, speaking of that, just talking about not only the curfew and the shutdown, but also um just talking about unemployment and people's jobs and businesses being at stake. Over here on the West Coast, they pressing the issue with Gavin Newsom specifically. People are definitely not looking at him in the best of lights, and they're looking to recall him. Or that's what the current temperament is, just amongst different people of social economic backgrounds, specifically the small businesses. Um, like I'll illustrate an example. One, as I was going and just handling my errands as usual and heading to the stores, just to go in and out, I'd see one or two caravans at different stations up different blocks up the city with people having recall Gavin Newsom in my city. Having conversations with people like my neighbors and people who I'd see in passing, as well as on YouTube, people who are in the West Coast talking about how contradictory Gavin Newsom has been in regards to his policy and trying to enforce social distancing and just this idea of a second lockdown. Um, because I think that there was a Supreme Court decision specifically in the religious context that got struck down in New York about social gatherings in regards to churches, and he was trying to enforce that out here in California, and people have been pushing back to exercise their religious freedoms and not feel like they've been cooped up as one point, but also um, people have taken aim at him during the holidays as well, because he went out on he gave an announcement about how families should not be together during the holidays, right? And just enforcing social distancing, but on the next breath catching them out at Napa Valley, at a French Laundry gathering with him and his family enjoying themselves, um, which that drops people's confidence level in the idea of how serious COVID is, as well as just trusting the system at large. So it's been a roller coaster, in my opinion, in regards to this idea of how this pandemic is panning out for individuals. There's lots of overlap of the actual containment of the virus itself and just like safety health issues, but then you also have the political and the capitalist element mixed in the basically thrown in the mix of it, and it's causing a bit of a disruption and more of a tear over on my side of the pond. um in fact, there was a video and there's a article that I wanted to share with the dojo in regards to this, because I had a conversation with an individual um a couple days ago before I found this article, and one of the discussions that was brought up within this whole idea about navigating through the pandemic as a small business owner is the if I could put it in allegory, the tale of two cities, in a sense, where um on one hand, those who are already corporatized being given financial incentives through the PPE loans and given certain pardons in regards to social distancing and being able to be open and being able to operate, but small businesses on the other hand, and the middle class, if you want to call it that, those of the lower economic stratosphere as well as the middle class, are being impacted more, and the enforcement and restriction of freedoms and trying to keep their businesses alive has become a point of contention. And so, with that said, I wanted to share this article, which I felt was pretty interesting in regards to this discussion, because this is just article coming to life, and it illustrates a little bit of the theme of the topic today, in my opinion. And so this is coming from Fox News. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt. We all know that this at the dojo, it's about the information and what's accurate, less about political leanings. Anyway, Los Angeles bar owner rips Garcetti and Newsom over double standards on outdoor dining. And I'll go ahead and just play this video. And yes, sir, appreciate it, brother Seventh, throwing on that fair use.
No doubt, no doubt.
All right, so let's go ahead and roll this beautiful beam footage and see what's going on in these streets. Ah, gotta always hit you with the commercials. While that's loading, brother Seventh, what was your thoughts on just this idea of the tale of two cities, in a sense? Do you think that that's something that you've seen in the East Coast on your end?
I can say that I have, not at my front door, but in instances where it's what's going on in the city is completely different from what's happening in upstate New York, right? Places like Westchester, it's almost like a completely different world. That there's still some things that I'm able to do here in the city that, upstate, they're having a hard time doing, like having access to certain, food spots or food places to get their groceries, having a lot of places that are understaffed to protect themselves from COVID, or due to COVID. So it's the city is impacted by case number, but by function, the upstate is a lot more impacted by function. Like the way it's able to have its regular operations compared to, it just seems like the city here in the city, everything. It's like the only thing that has changed is the amount of people, and when the amount of people change in more of like the, I guess, rural areas, there's things that aren't being done. So I do. That's kind of my thoughts on it. But without further ado, I'm gonna hold some other thoughts I have to roll this footage.
So this is my place, the Pineapple Hill Grill and Saloon. If you go to my page, you can see all the work I did for outdoor dining, for tables being 7 feet apart. And I come in today because I'm organizing a protest, and I came in to get stuff for that. And I walk into my parking lot, and obviously Mayor Garcetti has approved this, has approved this being set up for for a movie company. I'm losing everything. Everything I own is being taken away from me. And they set up a movie company right next to my outdoor patio, which is right over here. And people wonder why I'm protesting and why I have had enough. They have not given us money and they have shut us down. We cannot survive. My staff cannot survive. Look at this. Tell me that this is dangerous, but right next to me, as a slap in my face, that's safe. This is safe. 50 feet away. This is dangerous. Mayor Garcetti and Gavin Newsom is responsible for every single person that doesn't have unemployment, that does not have a job, and all the businesses that are going under. And we need your help. We need somebody to do something about this.
Wow, that was
Yeah,
wow.
what were your thoughts on that, brother Seventh?
I mean, I feel for her because I know a brother who he runs a small business, restaurant business, and recently his establishment was robbed, vandalized, and they took the cash register. Yeah, during COVID, these are some things that can happen, and he has an outdoor section as well. So I could only imagine, and he's right on the street. So I'm hoping. I haven't visited his establishment in a while because I've mainly just been reshifting my focus on some of my personal things. But I'm thinking about dropping by and checking up on him. We're in contact, but I haven't gone to his physical brick and mortar restaurant in a while. So I could only imagine how something like if it's happening out there, it's probably going to get a little crazier over here as well. I just haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I
this is.
think, oh my
Go
bad.
ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
I was going to say this is kind of like a premonition, if you will, of what's to come over in the east. So,
Nah, for sure, man. I think that to your point about, and I feel for the brother. My heart goes out to the brother as well, as far as his store being vandalized and burglarized. At that, it's one of those challenges. It's another one of those elements and challenges that individuals and essentially communities have to face when the system begins to break down, and the negligence that occurs, or the blind eye that occurs, those residual effects, the blowback is going to be felt from the foundation, more from the foundation, as opposed to the upwardly mobile side. And I think that, at least with this video, right, it illustrates a few points for me. One, the idea of COVID as a political device is still being used, which is a problem, in which individuals are fighting back on. But in the same breath, in the fact that it's being used as a political device and an economic tool, to fuel other agendas that are non-medical, because the opportunity is there, um, increases the exposure and increases the downward cycle in regards to putting people at risk. Why is that? Because when people not being able to separate the two, for the most part, they will think that COVID isn't serious, and this is just a quote unquote pandemic, because you see that on one breath, Hollywood movie production studios are getting approval for outdoor dining, but smaller businesses are not approved for small door or are not approved for outdoor dining. Gavin Newsom, at least on my side of my side of the pond, is telling everybody that is a citizen of California, oh, stay home, don't visit your loved ones, be safe, stop the spread. But then on the next breath, he takes a flight out to he flies out from California to visit family, and he's seen in restaurants not socially distanced. Not even, I think that if I could find the photo, I'll pull it up as an illustration. But it was so flagrant because he was not only not social distancing, he was inside of a facility. He wasn't even outside. And so from a technical standpoint or an objective standpoint, this causes an unnecessary rift between citizens, essentially, and it's poor leadership. And in my opinion, for those that are of the higher ups, and the way that they are conducting themselves and the way that they're handling this, because for the most part, people aren't going to be thinking objectively like, okay, let me do for the greater man if everybody else is thinking in self-interest, or better yet, if folks become hungry to the point of December 26th, right? When people get hungry, the idea of humanity and people's ethics and them going into their base form, it's more of a probability of that to occur more than them trying to think outwardly. I don't know. It's one of those things, man. It's weird. It's weird. And so when I think about that in context or in relation to the brothers, especially with our social economic standpoint, as well as the cultural challenges that we face, um, which includes but is not limited to um, our quality of life, and how we're treated financially, and trying to find economic opportunities, and as well as how we're manipulated and exploited politically. um, at this point, it's best to exercise caution, but you got to keep trucking. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me pose a question to you, brother Seventh. When it comes to the idea of brothers staying open and basically defying what a state is trying to enforce as far as lockdown protocols, because the state isn't giving them any funding, and they essentially are left to their own devices and trying to stay afloat while corporations are being funded. What are your thoughts on small businesses pushing back and staying open even with these enforcements and bylaws that they're trying to put in place as a safety measure for the public?
I would say that I'm open to a change of operations for small businesses, to to go with, the laws of the land, but at the same time, make sure that they are still performing depending on which business. Like, let's say if you are a restaurant, right? And your brick and mortar can no longer be open. There's other avenues. It's going to require a little bit of sacrifice. And this call to action will be a collaborative effort. At least I would think so. Um, like my cousin does a catering business, right? And she relies on the kitchen that she has via brick and mortar to show most of her work. But because of COVID-19, she's mainly been doing it from home. Like, she's been using her home kitchen to substitute, creating dishes and marketing it on her social media profiles and stuff. And she's been getting work. So I think the adapting to what's trying to be pushed down is something that should be explored and or looked at. What about you? What do you think about that?
I think that man, I think that it's a complex question, and that's really what the gist of it is. Um, Essentially, businesses are put in a Kobayashi Maru type of circumstance, especially if their industry requires individuals to be there in person and interacting, i.e., barbershops or teachers or whatever host of industry that actually requires human intervention, hospitals, right? And the fact that the system itself, I'm talking about the government and the policies that are in place aren't accounting for it is a problem. And I think that, I mean, for the businesses that can adjust to guidelines depending on your industry, if it fits and you're able to make it profitable and keep your clients healthy, um then do so. And for those who have to roll the dice, roll the dice, but do it mindfully and be transparent with your client base, right? Because I definitely wouldn't say, defy the law. Like in my analysis, because it's very, just like the system itself is complex. If you know that, you just like your business just isn't up to snuff, or it just doesn't fit within the paradigm of going virtual, um do your best to, you know make the necessary sacrifices, but keep the people who you're sacrificing informed of it, and what they're doing. And thankfully, in America, most people they'll be willing to comply. I think that that's the light amongst it, which is like it's like a catch 22, because for those who actually don't believe that COVID is real, and they'll actually go out without a mask, mind you, and they'll still continue to interact. It impacts positively for small businesses because they're able to stay afloat, and people are able to be free. But the downside is that increases the risk, and it increases the exposure for your fellow citizen. And so for me, man, it's a tough call, but I'd say that in that present moment, for those who are willing to take the risk, both consumer and producer, and you essentially have no choice, then do so, because you have the opportunity to do it. And at this point, the way that the reason why I say that is because the system in itself has failed you, right? And like, even in the presidential debates, and even when Trump was giving his speeches about how businesses are so prosperous, and the news media pushed back and asked, well, what about the small businesses? What about the businesses that can't afford um, to be able to stay in business? He essentially said they'll phase out and there'll be new businesses to spring up, which is a nice way of saying that these businesses are going to fail, and you got to figure out your own way to stay afloat.
Which
And
is, I laugh at that statement because one of the stories that just came out today. I'm gonna share the my screen here with the article. Just a second.
no doubt, no doubt.
Right. So, can you see that on screen? The
Hmm.
the tagline, the title line. So I think I think with what you just said, coupled with statements like this, like I said, I'm looking at it as like a premonition of what's gonna come to the East in no time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from New 7 News. This is like a Watertown, New York, publication. There's other stories that Google. None of them are good right now. Cuomo's not looking pretty good. There's a lot of bad. Well, I guess there's no such thing as bad press, right? All press is good press, but the verbiage isn't looking too positive. Instead it's looking more like the negative. So this was updated at 6:06 p.m. today. Wow, they wasted no time. It was initiated at 5:09 p.m. EST and updated an hour later or so.
That's real time for real.
Yeah, they're on top of this. Okay, so let's see. Watertown, New York. Sunday, Governor Andrew M. Cuomo updated New Yorkers on the state's progress during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The statewide positivity rate dropped slightly. Governor Cuomo said that the rate on Saturday dropped to 4.71% from 4.99% from Friday. Now, the current positivity rate in focus zones is 6.22%, which is an increase from what it was reported Friday at 6.17%. All other areas, the positivity rate is 4.24% and a decrease from Friday's 4.59%. Another 648 are in the hospital across 55 counties. Sorry, I'm about to say countries. I don't know why. There are currently 4,442 in the state being hospitalized. 850 are in the ICU. 464 with intubation. Sorry. There were 56 COVID-19 related deaths in New York State Saturday. That total climbs to 27,149 deaths. So COVID-19 is spreading, and it affects all New Yorkers, upstate and downstate. As we, quote unquote, this is a war, and we continue to adapt to the enemy by making decisions based on the data and science, not opinion and fear, Governor Cuomo said. Now, this is the verbiage that is very dangerous because how it is perceived when certain ears hear this, the thinking process changes. Now, I'm over here in the East, and there's been a lot of, and a comment like this wasn't made in other states. However, remember when this thing first started, gun sales, ammo sales went through the roof. And to categorize this as a war, or even to frame it like so, would set brothers on a
It triggers it.
Yeah, it's triggering a pathology that I'm not sure if we really want to have right now, especially with knowing that unemployment is about to run out, and it's running out right after Christmas. So Merry Christmas to the large number of those who are out of work and really need this while corporations are being, bailed out and things of that nature. Or moving companies are being approved versus restaurants and small businesses that need to survive,
Mm-hmm.
So this is like I call it a premonition, and I'm going to stick to it in that regard. This is a premonition of civil unrest to come down the pipe. I wonder what would be done to mitigate this before things get out of hand. I want to take a quick moment to do a check-in. I see we have some brothers that came in a little earlier. So Camp Low, Oos, peace to you, brother.
Oos.
I see we got BMT in the building. He came in, dropped by. Oos,
Oos.
I see we have brother Art Style TV. Oos.
Ooh.
And peace to you, good brother. The good elder.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that, to your point, man, I'm of the mind that the leadership that's in charge do their best to prevent this from rolling out of hand, but the language that they're using, it's not the best. People 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 respond differently when under stress. And if it's one thing that 2020 has proven us, or one thing that 2020 has given us, is stress in many different forms. And so I remember the pre-lockdown when firearms were going up on sale and people were cashing out on toilet paper and there are lines, which doesn't make sense to me. But when people were cashing out on toilet paper and there was lines of people at stores, at grocery stores. In fact, there's still a group of people, or like grocery stores, at least in my area, are still packed every day. There's always somebody in that lot. It's at least 50 to 60% capacity anytime I'm trying to pick something up at any time, as a matter of fact, whether it be morning or the afternoon pickup or in the evening. And so, you see it in real time, and it's easy to theorize, over the waves and discuss, but these are very real instances, and seeing what a depression looks like, essentially. I don't know about you, brother Seventh, but the level of homeless folks that I've just seen just pop up out of nowhere in just camps, like encampments in different, at least where I'm at, like near the highways or near bridges or like tollways, it's increased like tenfold, you know?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Over here in the East, that has occurred, but they're also trying to provide. So they've been using, like I told you before, like hotels as homeless shelters more than ever now because it's considered a health hazard to have, a lot of people out on the street,
Hmm.
especially if you haven't really tested them for COVID-19 and if this thing is asymptomatic and you don't know and you have, a bunch of individuals on the street, that is an easy way to for it to get around.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I have another article because, like I said, it's not looking pretty good. There's a lot of verbiage just being used in the East and video footage that's popping up. So let's take a look. Another tagline that does not look good at all. So Cuomo's office, a toxic work environment, people deathly afraid of him. Former aide says, "Wow, okay." And this
What
was
is this?
published. This is published 6 hours ago, right? And there's some beam footage associated. So and it's. I'm not gonna play the full 9 minute clip. I'm not sure if you want to dive into it. We could
We
put
can
the
dive in. We can dive into it. I just wanted to add an additional comment to your point. Is just looking at that imagery right there. Something else to account for is the amount of civil unrest that actually contributes to the spread of the virus, right? Because people are, their quality of life is being impacted, and they have so many stressors. It essentially incentivizes them to protest, in which it inherently gets people together, like just like you have that screen, like that screen or that image, like we still have protests going on every weekend and throughout the week. As a matter of fact, I take that back, because going back to the recall Gavin Newsom on our end, right? It's like huddles of people just lined up outside of streets and outside of malls and outside of grocery stores, congregating together, and they're not socially distancing, which contributes to it. And one of the solution, that's a social problem that needs to be addressed by leadership, because they're not out there for no reason. So that's what I wanted to add there.
Correct. I also wanted to add that no one had anything to say when the, when the president elect was announced and people were assembling at mass in Brooklyn in particular and places throughout the city hosting actual parties and playing a lot of Pop Smoke, which is weird to me. I didn't know Pop Smoke was a Democrat, or I'm guessing the Woos were Democrats, and now Biden and Kamala is going to meet the Woos. But no one had anything to say about that, yet these things are still occurring. And now this is in Staten Island. For those of you who are not familiar with, New
Shaolin.
New York's terrain, if you will. Staten Island is definitely one of the boroughs that's kind of like it's off to the side. You got to get there by boat. You got to leave there by boat if you want to make it into the city, the ferry. And don't take my word for it. Let's all view it and hear what you have to say, or read what you have to say about what you're about to view. So without further ado, enjoy.
You ever wondered what actors and actresses do?
Oh man, this is hilarious.
Represents the state of Florida, Senator Marco Rubio. He's chairman of the Senate Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you. You represent Florida, which is wide open. The schools are open, the businesses are open. Can you understand the frustration of business owners and parents, in fact, where their children are not allowed to go to school in states like New York, where there is so much frustration? And it seems like, the restrictions to try to prevent people from getting the COVID seems to be keeping people from making a living.
Yeah, there's a couple things in play. Number one, I think the overwhelming majority of people understand this virus is a problem. There's things we have to do to be careful about it and try to mitigate against the risk. And there's things that, we're going to have to restrict and be able to do, not be able to do. That said, there are some things that you're going to have to be able to do no matter what the risk is. And one of those is make a living. People have to make a living. They have to work. They have to provide for their families. And to do that, they need their kids to be in school. And their kids, by the way, also need to be learning. They can't afford, you can't afford to take a year off until we get a vaccine and not learn. So our job in public service, whether it's in local, state, or federal government, is to provide the resources and the pathways so we can do those things. Now, the second problem here is the hypocrisy, okay? The hypocrisy of...
Wait. Hold up. I had to pause this real quick. Is Marco Rubio addressing something that's happening in New York right now? Family, what's going on over in your neck of the woods? But I digress. Let's get back
As a
into
matter of fact, I'm glad that you stopped there, because I did want to comment on the way that he framed that statement, where he said that people need to make a living, but that means that their kids need to be in school. Which, gives a suggestion. He cleaned it up on the back end, gives a suggestion that, they need their babysitters, which has been mentioned before. And he's like, oh yeah, the kids, the kids need to be educated too. But like, no, we're tracking babysitting first, education second. That's the priority. So
all right, let's dive back in.
All right.
During the campaign, when Trump had a rally with a bunch of people, that was irresponsible. After the campaign, when people took to the streets dancing in huge, and the crowds, tightly packed crowds celebrating because of Biden, nobody said a word. And it's the same with the stuff now. You've got these people that own a business that put their...
My man's just said everything that I just said verbatim. I know Marco Rubio might watch the Dojo channel. I don't know.
Give us a sponsorship, man. Stop playing. Cut the check. We're practicing, so we're complying with socially distancing practices. You need to give us our check, bro. I'm waiting on that PPE.
Who paid for the Timbs, man? Let's get back to it.
Work into it, and you've got some guy behind a Zoom camera on television who gets paid to work from home, lecturing them about how they need to close their business and not work and not employ people. until they tell them it's okay to do it. So it's an enormous amount of hypocrisy, and people are tired of it.
Yeah, the Denver mayor told people don't travel for Thanksgiving, and then he flies to Mississippi to see his family. You've got Governor Gavin Newsom. You know what happened there at French Laundry at the restaurant. The Austin mayor told people to stay at home on a video. Turns out that video was recorded down in Mexico when he was on a vacation. Oops. So you're right about the hypocrisy. And I've heard it said every paycheck is essential. How do you pay your house payment? How do you pay for food for your kids or college without a paycheck? It's all essential. I know
the biggest hypocrisy here and in places like New York is they arrest someone for trying to work, but then they raise thousands of dollars and ask others to give money to bail out people who are committing arson and burning police cars and vandalizing cities. So think about that. You're going to demonize people because they decide they're going to work, but you are going to help bail out the heroic arsonists and looters. It's ridiculous. It's crazy stuff. And that's what people are tired of.
Yeah. Brian.
Pause it right there.
A couple of things.
So this gets to the crux of what I was mentioning earlier, where this the pundit, he has valid points, but the way that it's being framed is, again, it's out of political interest, which I give him the benefit of the doubt, and there's not even a benefit of the doubt. I understand that that's his role as a pundit, but the problem being is through political theater, once it goes through that political theater channel, the impression that it gives the audience member becomes more of a political leaning in order for it to be attacked and debated, and not something to be resolved as a societal or medical issue. And the points that he was presenting, from him criticizing liberals who were gathering together, which if you're a liberal or you're a Democrat, you can easily point to the Republican or those who are conservative, and whenever they've done gatherings, which they have, and there's evidence of doing that, to the whole trope of, well, the person who gets arrested is a person who's working, but a person who commits arson or that's protesting essentially gets a GoFundMe or whatever, or they get money raised. This becomes a problem. There's a counter argument for that, and the problem being is within that paradigm, the actual core issue ends up not getting resolved, which is mitigating the risk, right? While at the same time being able to have your society function in a healthy capacity. He inadvertently actually admitted one of the problems, which is that individuals from both sides actually this has become a COVID economy. The new COVID economy is those who are impacted directly and financially, who are forced to go to work and put themselves at risk, and they have to essentially break and defy policies that are being enforced without any type of coverage, which isn't mentioned, become the political talking points for those who are comfortable enough to be in a self-contained area or arena to criticize them and say, well, you shouldn't be social distancing, and look at these Democrats, or look at these liberals. And then on the other side, look at these conservatives, look at these Republicans. Knowing how the American economy works, knowing that those are two sides of the same coin, this is the paradigm, and this is the problem that I see in the poor leadership and how it's being done. Because having the antagonistic position that typically comes with political theater, which I understand is the process, is not the best in this type of instance. We have to find a way to we have to find a way to, without being cliche, come together or find a constructive solution to basically reducing the amount of cases, as well as reducing the exposure and increasing the confidence level of individuals, American citizens, and trusting the process. Because right now the divisiveness, on whatever level that you want to come at it from a cultural, from a financial, from a business, from political, it isn't serving the greater society right now, because we're in the midst of a depression, and everybody is hungry. And to your point, Brother Seventh, and I'll pass the mic off to you, or we can continue to roll it. When people become hungry and people become desperate, these talking points and these empty words from both sides become irrelevant. And right now, what I'm noticing is the habitual, basically, the average listener, their medication or their way to pacify their aggression or frustration is through these talking heads, while their reality is literally living on a string. And so, finding a way to flip that around or adjust that, especially with the pot growing drier and drier, is paramount from a leadership standpoint of those that are operating and managing the country from a local level to a state level to a federal level. There has to be some type of cohesion. And this currently isn't it in the way that they're doing it. I can see the objective, valid points that they're saying, but for the most part, for those who are politically charged up, or for those who are like not, like they're on their last dollar and on their last meal, they're not going to be able to, be able to concern themselves with that. Or if I was in their position, I wouldn't care about that. For me, I'm like, okay, you in a suit, you got this, you got that. Well, let me just run up in your house and, divest some of them items that you don't really need. And then let you continue to talk about how we need to socially distance because I'm homeless. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. They want it seems like, or at least from what I'm getting from all of these accounts, is channel this energy towards one particular, when this is an issue that everyone's facing. It's not just a select few. And I find it interesting that those who are saying social distance are going on vacations and opening businesses in front of other like, common man businesses, if you will, as a slap to the face. So as you said, it's going to be that, okay, you want me to social distance and I need to survive. Let me get some of your material so that I can make a living, right? And I think this is like a blame game being played. At least the way that I see it, there seems to be a finger pointing multiple directions. And if I know anything, when you point the finger at one particular person,
You were in charge of the PPP program. I think you started it.
When you point a finger at one particular person, you have three fingers pointing back at yourself. So just like I said, Marco Rubio's having comments about New York, but what's going on over in his neck of the woods? What is the situation over there? I get it does not take away from the poignant points that he has made about there is a level of hypocrisy right now in New York. But how is your lawn doing? You get what I'm saying? And when you have the average listener, right, they're not politically charged. They don't even care. So to them, everything is bad. So they're going to get it where they can. I wouldn't be surprised, some of these individuals who are taking vacations and telling people to social distance while they're having family gatherings, some of their stuff end up getting seized, if you will, quote unquote.
End up donated.
Right. They donated to charitable causes.
He was giving back while you're traveling, just left a note, a receipt from Goodwill. Said,
Right.
thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, so we wanted to give the elder, Brother Art Newstall, a perfect. We just want to show him some love. So let's go ahead and do that.
Perfect.
There we go.
Yes, sir. Appreciate the love.
But what's interesting is that a lot of the things that we were saying prior to getting this beam footage up is being said. So let's see where else they take it.
All
shall
right.
we?
Where people were told you got to stay home to stay safe, so you're going to get a paycheck anyway. Number one, is there more money coming? Why isn't all the money been spent? And number three is the word of a bipartisan $900 billion stimulus package was signed off by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi yesterday. Would Marco Rubio also get behind that?
Well, let me start with the money. It's not that it wasn't all spent. Every business that was eligible to apply was able to apply, and there was money allocated left over. That means we didn't spend all the money, which is good because we're able to take part of that money and use it for something else. We don't have to do new spending, which would be deficit spending. In terms of the $900 billion, look, I think it's a great start, and we can build on it. I think on the PPP portion of it, it goes a long way, but it's missing, it's missing some money, and we're going to find ourselves if we don't put enough money set aside enough money in the PPP program, then by February or March, we're going to have a situation where you have small businesses who need it but can't get it because the money ran out. So we want to avoid that sort of cliff that we faced the last time it was put together.
So you want more than $900 billion?
No. That's for the $900 billion for the total package. I think the PPP portion was about 200 they put in there. We really need closer to 259 billion. Now, it may not all get spent because understand the only businesses that will qualify this time around are ones that can demonstrate a 25% revenue reduction. They've lost 25% or more of their revenue. So we've limited who can get it to the ones who really need it. But a lot of businesses now, either they're not allowing you to operate or you're at the mercy of market conditions. I mean, you basically got political leaders telling people, don't go out, don't go shopping, don't go eat at restaurants, don't travel, don't go here, don't go there. So that even if they allow you to open, no one's coming because they're being told not to. So how do these guys stay afloat? You're going to have a lot of small businesses go out of business forever if we don't do step up and help them. We should have done it a long time ago. And the Democrats played political games with it.
You know what, Senator? You just perfectly set up this soundbite with your governor. Here's Ron DeSantis.
All businesses are open. We've had things like theme parks, beaches open for months and months. We have schools open. We have sporting events. And I think that for me, I think as you alluded to, a lot of these lockdowns have been very ineffective. They have huge negative consequences. And my view is that everybody's essential. Who is government to say that your job is not essential? I think some of the stuff in March and April didn't work. I think you have to let people earn a living, and it's really not even government.
Wait. Did you catch that, West Coast?
Run that back for the folks, man. That was these.
Hold on, let me run this back.
I think some of the stuff active.
Hold on. Oh man, acting up.
Oh man,
acting up. Don't worry, we're gonna get it back.
Nah, man. This goes back to my point, man.
Hold on, wait a minute.
Folks be acting up, man.
Oh man, another advertisement. Don't worry, fellas. We gonna work. We're gonna work on this.
And he represents great stabilizing cities.
So think about that.
Hold on, let me get to the sound
all the money
bite.
been spent.
Businesses that will qualify this time around are ones telling people don't.
Very ineffective. They have huge negative consequences.
All right, hold on. 'Cause I'm trying to figure out when the brother said, "Who is the government to say
who's essential,
who's essential, and who's not essential?" But I'm sitting here looking at the title, your title associated with you, and the titles associated with everyone speaking. Are you not a part of said government?
Again, man, I say here's the interesting thing for me is that they are very intelligent scientists, political scientists, very intelligent political scientists, in how they present their evidence and they present their information to their listeners. they are inadequate and poor medical scientists. So when you have these sound bites and these arbitrary statements or over these vague statements saying that we see that social distancing hasn't worked, we have seen it, the lockdown hasn't worked. There's so many variables within, there's so many elements within that statement that contribute to your result that isn't being addressed, which misleads and gives the wrong impression to the audience members to go in a particular manner to believe something. And I do say believe. That's the crux of the issue, at least in the political arena, that, in my opinion, should be adjusted in the short term. You know, I know that everybody got to eat. The corporations have to eat. You, at the end of the day, the big corporations, they need a source in order for them to continue to thrive and function. The inflation of the dollar with the amount of stimulus recovery that they're getting from the government is only going to do so much if your working class or your consumer base has nothing to contribute to your bottom line, which drives into, because countries and societies are interconnected, uh, the the degradation or the degrading of your society at large. And you know that the statements like that misrepresents and misleads and is a core problem within, it's one core problem when it comes to the political arena, but it's one element in the bigger scheme of things when it comes to your society and what the ultimate goal is, which is stopping the spread or reducing the spread at this point, because you can't stop the spread. People need to interact, regardless of what you're talking about in regards to business, just for mental and emotional health sake. Um, so your role is to reduce that spread and to build confidence in your constituents and the society at large, at least how I see it, in order for you to get back to a new normal, or a normal where the average man isn't asking these questions about their government, especially when they're uninformed and miseducated. Um, but yeah, I'll let the beam footage continue. I have some more thoughts on it, but this is one of those things. Oh, as a matter of fact, before I do that, brother Sheed, we got to show you love, brother. We showed you love on the last one, but we wanted to give you some more love for, um, what I'm saying, your support, the dojo. We got to give you your perfects. We got to give you your love while you here. So it's for you before we get back to the footage.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. You win.
And with that said,
No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. Oos, the brother Sheed. We here. Yeah, we here, Sheed.
yes, sir.
But we're gonna get back to this beam footage and hear that comment over again, because I really want a lot of the brothers in the dojo to capture what's being said, chew on that, and then we can break some boards. So without further ado, let's get into it.
All businesses are open. We've had things like theme parks, beaches open for months and months. We have schools open. We have sporting events. And I think that for me, I think as you alluded to, a lot of these lockdowns have been very ineffective. They have huge negative consequences. And my view is that everybody's essential. Who is government to say that your job is not essential? I think some of the stuff in March and April didn't work. I think you have to let people earn a living. And it's really not even government's role to say who could pick and choose. So
But that's the problem. In some localities, the people in charge, whether it's a city or a state, they are figuring out who gets to win and lose.
Yeah, and look, it's part of they like the power, and they like the ability to step in and tell people you can't do this or you can't do that. And I think part of it is if you don't do it as a leader, you get beat up. Look, I think the perfect example is New York and Florida. Okay, Governor DeSantis and the state of Florida is often characterized in most of the legacy media as some sort of COVID disaster. All right, but New York, who has less people than Florida, has more cases, more deaths, and nonetheless their governor wins an Emmy because of his press conferences. I mean, this is stupid. And this is the kind of hypocrisy. Again, people see this stuff.
It just
and,
is.
and they realize it.
All right, so we wanted to ask you about the Joe Biden interview with the New York Times. He hasn't even been sworn in yet, and he's already blaming Republicans for what he's not going to be able to get done. He says exactly how much he will get done will depend to a large degree on two things, Biden noted. One is how Republicans in the Senate and House behave once Trump is truly gone from power, and the other is how McConnell behaves if he continues to control the Senate. Your reaction?
Yeah.
Whoa. What a statement. What a statement. Did you catch that, West Coast?
Man, what did she say?
Oh, all right, I'm gonna run that back. So Biden, let's just run that back. All right, let me go back a little further. There we go. Look at the smile on her face. She's happy to read that. But just catch this.
Again, people see this stuff.
It just
and,
is.
and they realize it.
All right, so we wanted to ask you about the Joe Biden interview with the New York Times. He hasn't even been sworn in yet, and he's already blaming Republicans for what he's not going to be able to get done. He says exactly how much he will get done will depend to a large degree on two things, Biden noted. One is how Republicans in the Senate and House behave once Trump is truly gone from power, and the other is how McConnell behaves if he continues to control the Senate.
What is your thoughts, brother?
Man, I'm gonna let you break boards on this. I'm gonna let you take the lead on this, man. What's your insight?
Again, I'm just gonna refer back to Cuomo's statement about this being a war and continuing to adapt. And it's just like, on what front? You know, the way that it's being framed, and then here, and even in this conversation of, some people they love the power and they like telling people what to do and being the decision maker on who's essential and who's not. And the fact that Biden is already, it's being mentioned that he's not sworn in, but he's already pointing fingers at what he's not going to be getting done and who is responsible for what he's not going to be able to do. I do think that it's interesting. Also, this makes me want to ask a certain group in particular, do you still want that meeting with him if he's already saying he can't do certain things, even though you guys already pushed him over the finish line, quote unquote? We had a brother come in and make a contract for Black America, and somehow that Black America does not include or is not limited to Black women. And now you have this elect, right, not sworn in yet, and then you have Patrice Cullors, is that her name, wants to schedule a meeting after the fact, after the fanfare is done, after everyone was taking Biden Harris to meet the Woos in Brooklyn and other parts of New York City, not social distancing. We ain't not gonna forget about that. New York ain't gonna forget.
Never forget.
The Northeast always remembers. And then with a statement like that, I wonder what's on the head top of a lot of people right now. As a matter of fact, what is on the brothers in the dojo's mind, right? Not just ours, but what are your thoughts on this? To the 200 we got in the building, for the West Coast, what do you think about this?
I'm speechless, man. In regards to the certain political group that we've been bunched up with and assigned as our de facto leadership, what are you going to do? Because the dust is slowly settling, and you see the type of energy Biden is on. I'm gonna use their language, you know what I'm saying? I'll use a language that's more akin to what we're accustomed to. The type of energy Biden is on, he's already setting up for the next play. And in my opinion, you've already or we've already, at least in our cohort, we've already been given our cue of this is your bus stop. We've already got what we needed from you. So the gynocracy and just the intra-cultural warfare that we have to deal with, or we have to experience, or impacted by, I'll say impacted by, that the proof is in the pudding. So it's really the onus is on the political group that so-called got him into office to continue to drive that ship. And if they drop the ball, they drop the ball. In regards to this statement right here in this piece, I asked myself, and really it's a question to the dojo and a question for you, is what is the incentive for having an antagonistic position in regards to the opposition, if you will, when it comes to Biden and his remarks and his stance, given that he's not even in office? What do you think the benefit is, or what value is extracted from it?
I could be wrong, but I think it has a lot to do with some of the comments that he made towards a particular group. That if you ain't riding with him, then you ain't essentially black. And I think anything that comes out of this man's mouth at this point, who was supposed to be the ones dishing out their energy on this, right? But the people who, because even when you look at this highlighted tagline, right, that Biden made sure Trump is not going to be president for 4 more years. It's interesting how a group, and those who were assigned as the leaders of the community were the ones who made this grandiose push for this man to be, elected. And this goes back to your previous statement of the, undereducated and misinformed, and how easy it is to rally them up or get them to do something for you when you give them low vibratory rewards, while you're walking away with the lump share of the lion's share of loot, if you will. So I think there's and this goes back to what I was saying, there seems to be this smoke that's trying to be made. Like the dust is settling, but now there's this blame game happening with smoke, and it's like, who's really about to get away with something? I think someone's getting ready to take the emergency hatch, or attempt to take the emergency hatch, while they're not being looked at. And the least suspected goes the most undetected. So I just want you brothers to remember that. And with that, I'll pass the mic on to you.
I mean, I think we can keep the video going, bro, because at this point, the theme of having an antagonistic position is just a common theme across the board. I'm gonna reserve my comments, and I'll save my thoughts on the other side in regards to our cultural impact, in regards to the political aftermath, because that is something. Because a lot of folks were on hush mode, but let's wrap up what the thoughts were from these individuals and their vantage point on this COVID issue that we have to face, which is a global issue.
No doubt. All right, let's get back into it.
Your reaction?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it will depend on how Biden behaves. Is he going to sort of fall in line with the radicals in the Democratic Party that are already insisting that right out of the gate we do the clean, the Green New Deal and all this other stuff? Or is he going to try to get things done that both sides can agree on? So really, a lot of it depends on what he seeks to prioritize and what he wants to do. Look, I'm going to be clear with you guys, and maybe some people watching aren't going to like it. I'm not just going to be against stuff because Joe Biden's for it. If it's something I'm for and he's for, I mean, my job is to do what's best for the country. Right. But we have to understand there are a lot of things that he's for that I'm going to be against. That's why I supported Donald Trump, and that's why I'm a Republican. And he's got a lot of people around him who are far left and are going to push us in that direction. I'm not going to be for any of that stuff. And I'll just tell you that up front. I've never told anybody I'm a liberal Democrat.
You're not going to be happy with what he's going to do with Iran. He wants to get that deal back, and he wants to extend it. So he says, I want to go right back to that deal and remove all the Trump sanctions. That sounds like a scary proposition.
Yeah, again, I mean, he's surrounded by people and people in his orbit and people on his side of the aisle that the first thing they do is criticize Israel. Listen, over the weekend, we had 3 Democratic members of Congress attend an event put on by an organization linked to Hamas, clearly anti-Semitic. There were jihadist financiers at this event. You heard crickets, nothing, no reporting on it whatsoever.
Who was it?
Well, I don't know all 3 of their names. I guess Talib. To be honest with you, I read the article, so I don't want to misstate who was there, but it was Rashida Tlaib was one of them, and then I forgot who the other 2 were. But nonetheless, it's widely reported. Well, I think one of them, the one from Minnesota, I believe, took down her Twitter post about all of this. Look, again, no reporting about it whatsoever. Radical attendance at this radical event. It's the kind of stuff, and all of it's going off media reporting, by the way, in some outlets, but not in the widespread media. These are elements within the Democratic Party that are going to have a voice and are going to push the Democratic Party in a certain direction. So if that's the kind of stuff we see from a Biden administration, yeah, I'm going to be against it.
Well, let's see what happens. Senator Marco Rubio joining us from Washington. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I do have a thought on his last comment. And I'll give him that. I'll give him the fact that he did slip in that he's not going to blindly go against what Joe Biden is for just for the sake of him being for it. But that's one out of, it's like less than 10% of your talking points in this whole, exposition, which it doesn't contribute to the ultimate solution when it comes to getting back to a baseline that is reasonable for the majority or a good portion of your society, to get back on their feet.
You are absolutely correct.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, look, and to my point earlier about it being a blame game, I'm not sure if you caught the fingers being pointed towards the end there, where he was, where as soon as he was asked to basically say it, right, or for those in the community or communitar, they basically was asking that man to snitch on live television.
Facts.
He said, "So who was there? Say it. Put them on blast. No subliminals. We want names." And then he had to cover his own ass and essentially say, I read the article, but a lot of the stuff disappeared, and I don't know the other 2, but I only know one. I don't know. I was there at the cookout. I saw it happening, and then all the footage was just gone. It's like the cookout never happened.
Yeah, and you know what? To be reasonable, there are boundaries to everything, and what at the end of the day, folks got to make a living, but at what point will you sacrifice intolerance for the sake of your own self-interest, or your self-interest, I guess you could say? Which, I mean, I don't have the answer to that question, and it varies depending on people's circumstances and their their standard of living, or what they're willing to stand up for. In line with that article, and just this idea of trade-offs, and just the Kobayashi Maru just being handed to the everyday man or the everyday person, right? my thoughts about our cultural situation and the impacts and influences that we have to deal with, um, that that problem is still on the table, and that's something that needs to be addressed. So the folks that were saying that the man who came up with the contract and having all of these criticisms and advocating for strictly sticking to one political party, which is now the official president elect, and how they're going to have all of these solutions. Where are you at now? Because it's, you're on hush mode. Before, but before the election and before voting, you was out in the field. You had high visibility as far as what I could see, and promotion, marketing campaigns to get in front of people's faces to drive change. You were fully there. You were full throated in your points. And even when he was nominated as president elect, you went as far to flip the script and say that it wasn't these individuals who we thought were important in getting this man in office to get him in office. It was actually our cohort. And if that's the case, that means that you're assuming a certain amount of responsibility and leadership. So my expectation is for you to stand up on the front lines to continue to be that force, and don't back down from it now, and try to cop please, which is what I'm noticing or sensing now in the atmosphere, where it's like, yeah, we were the ones that got him in office, but that's because y'all was too weak to be able to stand up on your own to to essentially do that, when your tune was to a different pitch prior to this happening. And when you saw a demonstration of independence on full display, it was nothing but fear and concern and uh antagonistic type of behavior, and trying to shush us down. So we all know good and well about gynometry. I'm pretty well versed on that formula, and at this point, I'm just calling out the formula. So the formula was applied pre election. Let's see where the formula is at post election. If you know all that talk, now it's time for you to step up. And to illustrate that point, there is a article that I wanted to share, which, you know the theme of this stream has been proceed with caution but proceed. And so I wanted to shed light on this sister right here with this article, that apparently there's a petition for this sister who's a black scientist who ended up getting fired from Google, and I guess 1,500 Google employees signing a petition condemning the actual firing of this AI computer scientist, um, because of some whistleblowing practices or an article that she had done as far as research in Google's company diversity program. And so I'm going to read a little bit of the article and then get everybody's thoughts on it. So it says that more than 1,500 Google employees of some 2,000 academic, industry, and civil society supporters have signed a petition protesting the termination of Timnit Jabru. And I apologize if I butcher the name. The sister is Eritrean. She's I believe that she's Eritrean American, a black scientist and a artificial intelligence ethicist, who claims that she was fired by Google after she raised concerns about the company's diversity protocols. We, the undersigned, stand in solidarity with Dr. Timnit, who was terminated from her position as a staff research scientist and co-lead for ethical artificial intelligence team at Google, following unprecedented research censorship. The petition reads: we call on Google Research to strengthen its commitment to research integrity and unequivocally commit to supporting research that honors the commitments made in Google's AI principles. I'm going to open this up really quick. In a series of tweets, Timnit said that she had been fired by the company on Wednesday after she expressed frustration in an email sent to an internal group for women and allies working in the company's AI unit about Google's shoddy diversity initiatives. The company, she wrote, fosters a culture of zero accountability, one where there is no real incentive for the company's leadership to ever change hands. Your life gets worse when you start advocating for underrepresented people. You start making the other leaders upset, Timnit wrote in the email. There is no way more documents or more conversations will achieve anything. The dispute the dispute appears to stem from a November incident during which a Google senior manager told Timnit that she would have to retract or remove her name from a paper she co-authored, according to Rutgers. The paper had concluded that tech companies are not doing enough to ensure that AI systems designed to copy human speech and writing patterns do not exacerbate historical gender biases and the use of offensive languages. In an interview with Wired, Timna said that she had attempted to negotiate with Google, offering to remove her name from the paper in exchange for the company providing a full explanation of its objections and outlining a list of best practices for handling such instances in the future. Long story short, they end up letting her go and accepting her resignation letter. Um, and apparently, the issue is still under investigation. Now, with that said, Brother Seventh, what was your impression from this article? Just off first read and first listen.
Off of first read and first listen, all of those employees, if she was in a group, why was she singled out of the group on everyone that's associated on the email talking about this? Why was she the only one picked out of the hat or the bunch and made an example out of? I mean, I guess that's what you want to deter people from doing the same thing she's done. But at the same time, for the 1,500, you all could have resigned and started your own thing. This could have been an opportunity. Instead of waiting for the permission of this bigger entity, I'm sure that all of those smart minds being in a think tank of some sorts could easily make something happen.
Very good point.
That's my thought process to this, and it's still being under investigation. To me, is a little bit asinine because they could not provide an objection or a list or a way to handle the situation next time. It was just like one and done. That's it.
Right. And even looking at this, right, it said after rejecting her compromise deal, Google cut off Timna's email access and wrote to the artificial intelligence team to say that it had accepted her resignation. In that email reviewed by Rutgers, Jeff Dean, the head of Google's AI unit, claimed that she had threatened to resign unless she was told which colleague deemed a draft paper she wrote was unpublishable, a demand which Dean rejected.
Oh man, wow, that's funny. They say, "Yo, make the AI do the work."
Yeah, you give the algorithm.
AI, right? The same AI she's talking about. That's gonna be your undoing. Isn't that anticlimactic? But
yeah, it's
geez.
in this article because it falls under tech. It falls under tech, but it also falls under our cultural impact, right? Because the individuals who are going to be programming your devices, there's going to be an inherent bias to it. And even when you're in the tech sector, there is a risk in attempting to address cultural roadblocks that have been baked into the society at large, because the code itself is going to be objective. It's only gonna do what it's been instructed to do. So if the information that it's given is inherently biased, then the results are going to be inherently biased. So the sister brings up a good point, and I here is two thoughts that I have on this, because there's two different elements that we can go through in regards to looking at this issue. So obviously, we know that our community, the women are the de facto leaders, and they're the kick-ass women. You have that one element on as a representation here, right? A woman in tech, black woman at that. You have, this is intersectionality put at its highest form, because she's also not only that, but she's also Eritrean American. But the tagline for this um, article is Black AI, and going back into this idea about ADOS versus immigrant Africans, and the idea of blackness and the spectrum and the integration about experience, and the type of contribution that she could provide, and the accuracy of the market that she's trying to serve. It seems noble, but the level of accuracy is in question, and even the manner. Because look at this. In the beginning, it just said uh her main focus was calling out AI systems designed to copy human speech and writing patterns that do not exacerbate historical gender biases in the use of offensive languages. So her main focus, right, at least according to this article, was based on the principle of gender and not race, right? And being that this is the dojo, and being that this is definitely a platform that is to inform and to educate the brothers, and especially this idea of BMI and black male independence, um holding counterparts accountable that want to be under the mantle of being considered uh black, right? Or they're afforded the privilege of being black, right? And I know that seems like a oxymoron, um about black privilege, but the use of black as an identity, and the melding of different experiences and people speaking on your behalf, especially in this tech driven, COVID driven, um politically leaning towards demographics that isn't of your interest driven type of society, is imperative for you to be sharp in. And so for me, it's bittersweet, because on one end, like, whether you're ADOS or of African descent, and you've been here, and you respect the experience, the American black experience, um you serve some value to the cohort that you've been assigned to. But now the ability to galvanize and turn that into something that can be of use in the realm of improving the quality of life for your cohort is the question at hand. Um, is this sister of the 1,500, right? How many of these folks are ADOS, or how many of it is coming from the black community? That's a question that I have, from a cultural lens, not from a are black people doing enough to help people in STEM lens, and noting that if 1,500 people, out of those people, if it's majority of another if it's of another um ethnic background, then that also raises another set of challenges and questions about what blackness is going to be defined as in the larger society. um and with that said, I'm gonna pass it to you, brother Seventh. Let me know what your thoughts were on on a bit of my ramble, a little bit of the thought
Nah,
flow. But
it was all good, because you raised some of the points that you know that I mirror to a degree, right? That how many of the 1,500 are ADOS black or consider themselves black. And now that we're looking deeper into her statement, right, where it's like a gender first kind of thing, how many of those 1,500 were actually men and or women for that matter that signed a petition? Is this 1,500 women that got together like Voltron and, protect one of our own, or is this a mixture? Right.
Yep,
And I
because we
think
all
that
know. My bad. Go ahead.
I think that gender first focus is going to be the hindrance, right? Because it's like trying to cut the head off of the Leviathan, and when you do that, two more grow back in its place. So here you are under the mantle of black AI, but then talking about gender biases. Which problem do you want to address first? The racial issue or the gender issue? And as we can see, as we've seen throughout history, trying to focus on the gender situation first does not leave us, the blacks, or black people, with conducive results. Shout outs to the civil rights movement and intersectional feminism, right?
No doubt.
Shout
Because
out
we
to
no doubt. Because it's like from the ADOS or a foundational Black American lens, um, feminism and intersectionality from a objective point of view was used as a deceptive tactic to break up the Black family. And now the way that this can lead and the way that things are going, it continues to be a prevalent device that's used where it's covered under the umbrella of what's being called black to focus on gender, knowing that when you separate the two genders, there's a plethora of differences and there's a plethora of challenges that you have to parse through in order to actually resolve the core issue here. And to
correct.
your point that cutting off the head of the Hydra, with two more growing back, that's essentially what you're dealing with when you go down that lane, and that's another Hydra that brothers have to face, or you're gonna have to encounter in some form or fashion. In fact, it's the perfect analogy thinking about it because us as brothers, we're not a monolith, right? We all have different backgrounds. We all have different. We all come from different walks of life and have different um, experiences. But the core issue that we all deal with is the culture that we've been cultivated in, which is built on, it's built on racism, and so with it going through this transition period, right? Knowing that, white supremacy as a cultural device not being as sustainable due to the birth rate, due to admixture, due to global impacts and forces, um, how this global reset from a cultural lens within our community hits us is something that brothers need to be paying attention to because how black is being defined and the fact that you by proxy are going to be thrown under that and at the mercy of whoever drives or attempts to drive said community if you choose to be in it, um, will be an area of concern. And with that, I pass it to you, Brother Seventh.
No doubt. And I just want to say thank you, brother, for keeping me sharp, because I definitely said the Leviathan, that is the wrong creature that I was trying to make the point on. So it was definitely a Hydra. So for those that probably might catch that and be like, oh, he was wrong on that. I do own up. Wrong creature to call out, but you get the point. And it makes me wonder if this is going to become a more commonplace practice moving forward, right? I can't can't say I don't see it not occurring over and over again. This is just, at this point, each of these are little snippets or snapshots or premonitions, if you will, because I'm going to continue to say premonitions because it's something that you're seeing now. And when you see it again, it's going to be a, where did I see this before kind of feeling. And seeing that this is something that has occurred throughout history already, and now it's repeating itself, you can only imagine if anyone's actually learning from the instances, or are they just insane and repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different result?
You know, the way that they choose to train their, citizens, I'm thinking it's more the former than the latter.
Man, I see you pulled up the Google principles just to dive into it a little further from that article. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, sir. Because AI is the future, and everybody keeps talking about AI. So we might as well look at one of the driving forces that will be using, or that will be using us, however you want to see it, and some of the principles and how they say that they will be driving this code. So the objectives of AI applications, will assess AI applications in view of the following objectives. Excuse me. We believe that AI should be socially beneficial. I'm gonna go over the bullet points, and if we want to go through each of the subsets, we can. But be socially beneficial. Avoid creating or reinforcing unfair biases. Unfair bias.
Put a pin in that.
Be built and tested for safety. Be accountable to people. Incorporate privacy design principles. Uphold high standards of scientific excellence. Be made available for uses that accord with these principles. Hold on, got to add this in here. AI applications will not pursue, make sure to put a pin in this too, save this in the archives, technologies that cause or are likely to cause overall harm where there is a material risk of harm. We will proceed only where we believe that the benefits substantially outweigh the risks, and will incorporate appropriate safety constraints. Weapons or other technologies whose principal purpose or implementation is to cause or directly facilitate injury to people. Technology that gather or use information for surveillance violating internationally accepted norms. Technologies whose purpose contravenes widely accepted principles of international law and human rights. I'm going to put a pin in this right here, but we're going to double back to the second one. The second principle of the objectives of the AI application, which is avoid creating or reinforcing unfair biases. Bias, I keep saying biases like it's a plural. Unfair bias. And this is right off of the heels of this article of them firing a black AI scientist for whistleblowing. So let's look at the subset. So it says that AI algorithms and data sets can reflect, reinforce, or reduce unfair biases. Oh, it was a plural. Cool. We recognize that distinguishing fair from unfair biases is not always simple and differs across cultures and societies. We will seek to avoid unjust impacts on people, particularly those related to sensitive characteristics such as race, ethnicity, gender, nationality, income, sexual orientation, ability, and political or religious belief. Brother Seventh, you have the floor. Go ahead and break some boards.
So there's a word there, right? that that G word. I'm about to cuss now.
Mm.
That gender word right there that popped up. And when you go back, this is off the heels of that article. She got fired for.
The dispute appears to stem from a November incident during which a Google senior manager told Timnit that she would have to retract or remove her name from a paper she had co-authored. According to Reuters, the paper had concluded that the tech companies are not doing enough to ensure that the AI systems designed to copy human and speech writing patterns do not exacerbate what? Historical gender biases and the use of offensive languages.
Man, Google, your AI team, y'all dropping the ball, man. What's going on over there? Honestly, when you think about the evolution of mankind, I think such biases, right? And I'm gonna say that for the article, such biases, right? Both misandric and misogynistic hinder the overall productivity and evolution of mankind as a species. And it's displayed here in this situation in particular, right? That here you are writing the rules, and this sister in this case, she spoke about you guys not following the rules, and as a result, she said, "Oh, you checking us on the rules we wrote? You holding us accountable?" The AI team is never accountable, and then add insult to injury by making the AI system be the scapegoat for her resignation letter. Just that they did sister filthy, man.
You know, I had a black pill thought right now. It was so bad.
What's up? What's up? Bring it on out.
So look, looking at this subset and the way that this can be interpreted, it says we recognize distinguishing fair from unfair biases is not always simple and differs across cultures and societies. I think that that's the key, that's the pivotal line that they were leaning on when they made this decision as far as practice. Because historically, when it comes to being in, look at keywords, right? Because she's considering herself a Eritrean American, but they call her Black AI. We all understand the social and cultural role of individuals being marked as Black. And so they possibly felt justified in letting the sister go because culturally in American society, Blacks weren't allowed, or you're not allowed to speak out of turn when it comes to certain decisions and information. You know, sounds bad, but it's like putting the sister in the bed wench role, you know, or the the tokenism role. It's like, yeah, we have diversity, but we understand that in American culture, uh, those labeled as Black don't have as much say so, and so not only do you have to remove your name because it says that she co-authored it. It doesn't say it, meaning that there's another author that isn't mentioned in this piece, for one, and it said that she needed to remove her name. It doesn't mention the result of the individual who helped assisted in writing said paper.
Well,
That's one piece.
that's probably because she's not a part of the Google's AI team.
Mm.
So they don't have no pull over that individual. Or
maybe we don't know that's we could assume that they weren't a part of the team, or we can assume that they were. It just the fact that they mentioned that it was co-authored at one length, and the second piece that they weren't going to make any concessions in the changes that were called out to negotiate, and the fact that they just said we'll let you go lets you know that it lets you know their position in regards to the direction that they would tend to go and trying to resolve this cultural matter, because this is a cultural issue. This is an American cultural issue that if it continues to perpetuate, you're just going to see it in your machines, and how that's going to turn out, Nobody knows. But yeah, I think that was a black pill. That was a black pill. Humor that I thought about this is just like, oh, they just thought she was a bad wench. It's like, oh, this bad wench was out of line for trying to keep us accountable. Because
she done reminded them of their standard procedures. Did you
Mhm.
forget? Did you forget how to handle me?
Right.
I'm sorry. We're making light of this situation because it's just, and this isn't a direct an indictment of the sister in particular, but more or less an observation of the situation at hand. And this is still under investigation, so we can only speculate at this point.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're trying to make light of this situation by poking fun at it just a little bit, a little bit of humor here and there.
Matter of fact, look at this comment from yesterday. It says that the moral of the story is mouth off to and shit talk the higher ups, and your job isn't long for this world. I have yet to hold a job where what Timnit did isn't a fireable offense. Wrong hill to die on.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I've heard a lot of you know what? Let me not do that. I'm
Come on. break the board.
You know what? Fuck it. Kia. I've heard a lot of brothers in this space in particular make claims about being able to stand up to their higher ups and talk anyway to their higher ups and not get any type of recourse or fired for it or held accountable for such outlandish things to be said to a higher up. And it makes me wonder, the only way you could do that is if you're in bed with the dog and you got some fleas. So I'm not gonna, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do it. Kia. Break the board.
Oos.
Oos. But makes me beg the question. So there was no, and these are brothers that I heard come out of term like this. Like, yeah, I talk to my boss any which way I want, and he can't say shit to me. And it's like, you talk to your boss. you talk to your boss any which way, and you really expect me to believe that, brother, when you come in here talking to other black men saying you have a boss and you talk to him any which way? And it sounds a lot like when the Gen X women would find like a sugar daddy situation and be like, yeah, and he's buying me all these stuff and I don't even got to do nothing for him, lying through the skin of their teeth because they're knowing they sucking on that man like oxtail bones. And it's really making me wonder the position that must be played in order to say some outlandish shit like that. I would say, excuse my French, but today I speak a little French. Oui.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, and to that statement, where that's what made me think about or have that moment, that breaking board moment where you can't speak to the higher ups and expect not to get any type of retaliation now. And even if on paper the sister was in the right because she spoke against something that was written down in the rules, but she also reminded them of the unwritten rules. And so they basically told her, yeah, you're right. Let me get back to the unwritten rules. The ones that aren't on paper, but the ones that we understand, the mutual agreement or precedent that was set throughout history. And that's kind of what I see the situation as. And I wonder what is going to be the end result of this investigation on that sister's part. And I kind of want to know more about that 1,500 people that got together to sign a petition. What's going to happen to their jobs? And 1,500 of a company that's no small feat. That's no small number now. That's more than enough to start a company and get your own ball rolling, which is why I said earlier on that these 1,500 people couldn't put their money together and start their own think tank and make something happen. They have the knowledge. I'm pretty sure they have the tenure in these tech positions to match some type of positive result, and could probably do it a lot better now that they no longer have the shackles of these quote unquote rules and guidelines that they were being pressed to follow.
Brother Seventh, I got to give you the
Uppercut! Uppercut!
You know, and yes, sir. But this is the things that I think about, you know, from first read and first listen. That's the first thing that crosses my mind. But I could see how, with the placeholder, the face on this story, it could easily sway your emotions, and it can perturb you from looking at this from the facts or a logical lens, because the fact of the matter is, it doesn't care about your feelings. You could reject it because it doesn't make you feel good, but that doesn't change what's written down, and that doesn't change what we know. You know, what we know is what we just read, that you have a set of principles and an individual, you know, commented on it, and you weren't able to make any concession or compromise, and you fired her right out the gate. And then you added insult to injury by using the very tool she commented on to accept a resignation letter.
And here's the thing, her role in the company was to do such things. So my question in how she was treated on the job is literally, it's essentially counterintuitive. As a matter of fact, hold on, let me bring this back up. Let me show this screen really quick. So it said, or she states that I felt like we were being censored and thought this had implications for all ethical AI research. She told Wired, "You're not going to have papers that make the company happy all the time and don't point out problems. That's antithetical to what it means to be that kind of researcher." So her role was designed to actually call out these types of blind spots. And the fact that she was let go because she identified these blind spots raises red flags.
Absolutely.
Which, you know, I hit it with the black pill humor, but at the end of the day, this isn't a laughing matter. And this is another example about the theme of this show of proceeding with caution, but still proceeding. Because this begs the question that all brothers should ask themselves is, what are you willing to risk for the sake of your freedom?
I would like to frame it a little differently. What are you willing to risk for the most conducive results? Right? Because even the idea of freedom, we've seen it practiced in this space, right? Where the idea of freedom is adhering to what the gynocracy says. And if the gynocracy being the pool boy, right, that gets lucky with the gynocratic mistresses of the world, to them, that's their freedom. They're winning because they're doing something that other brothers who have discipline and standards don't, or are not doing every now and again. And then this becomes another circular conversation of the select and non-select situation, or the game conversations, which, seeing that we are talking about tech, where it's going to start this war between the tech and the game guys.
I think that you bring up a good point in that, right? Like, if brothers want at this juncture, because I know that the discussions have kind of circled back to, you know, what is it going to take for brothers to come to the table, or sisters to come to the table? as an official BMI individual, if you decide to participate in the course of what is identified as the gynocracy and all of the pitfalls, you very well have that choice. My thing is, why not make an informed choice, or make an informed choice in you dealing with the gynocracy, because it's such, you're literally playing against a loaded, you're playing against a loaded deck essentially. I'm not involving myself like that, but if you decide to do that, then I mean that's literally on you. But as a brother to brother, just keeping it funky, keeping it accountable, why accept such a raw deal when you can get at least something better out of the deal that's already kind of shady, you know?
Pleasures once tasted become necessities, West Coast. And I think when you get, you get to touch the peach colored walls, it tastes so good that you don't want to experience nothing else.
Hmm.
A lot of brothers love peach cobbler. We just finished Thanksgiving, and now we're going near Christmas. So
I
think
mean, there's more flavor. There's more peach flavors. Like, even going with that analogy, right? Like, I feel you. Like, at the end of the day, brothers have been socially trained and conditioned for the most part, to adhere to their woman for the sake of sexual deprivation or the risk of not having sexual access, right? I can
correct.
understand that. But at the end of the day, if your craving is that sexual access, or that type of cooperation, there are other ways to get a bigger slice of that pie that have been demonstrated from other brothers, in multiple ways. Just by way of just understanding the situation that you're dealing with. If you decide to go that route, just don't. But
Come on
anyway.
now, come on now, West Coast. You asking brothers to get the ingredients and make the pie when I could just go to my local supermarket and get the Betty Crocker or the Intimates right there. I could get the
Mhm.
Intimates right away. Why make, even though it's more rewarding to make the cake or make the flavors from the
Mhm.
ground up, if you will, or from the cutting board up. Why do that when I could just buy the Intimates? The Intimates is good too. And that's the that's the vantage point that a lot of brothers will tackle it from. And though we ourselves here in the dojo and brothers that share the same sentiment with us to a degree are thinking rationally about this situation, it's the socialization of the programming is not, it's not set for you to think rationally. It's to have you follow the handlers
Mhm.
and chase the dream of power, right? It's to believe, right? Not to know. But see, we're coming into an age of knowing. So let brothers meditate on that. And my motto is you learn more, you earn more. So don't rob yourself of the opportunities or the blessings that the universe has to offer you through study and action once the studying is done. With that,
Very
I
good.
pass the mic back to you.
Very good point. Very good point. And that was well said. Let's go back into these AI principles in relation to the cultural impact that it'll have, for the brothers practicing BMI. So, be accountable to people. We will design AI systems that provide appropriate opportunities for feedback, relevant explanations, and appeal. Our AI technologies will be subject to appropriate human direction and control. Incorporate privacy design principles. We will incorporate our privacy principles in the development and use of our AI technologies. We will give opportunity for notice and consent, encourage architectures with privacy safeguards, and provide appropriate transparency and control over the use of data. So, these two areas of just observation in itself interest me, because one, the accountable to people piece is this, it's in direct conflict with what the case that has been presented here with this sister, because this was a feedback that she provided with the paper that she co-authored, but they decided to reject it. So the fact that they were willing to do that with one of their chief staff, or not chief staff, one of the staff that was intended to play that role, the confidence level in them actually taking into consideration feedback from the consumer and user of said device seems slim to none. But we will see in future iterations and in future developments to see if this ends up being resolved in a constructive manner. And then the second piece is the privacy design principle piece, because obviously nowadays when it comes to just your data, it's free reign. We willingly give our data. That's how we've been socialized, and that's how we've been cultured, especially in this day and age. And with the pandemic here in full swing, and essentially us just observing the preemptive setup of what our day to day is going to look like, um, on the normal, the amount of data that this AI is going to collect and is currently collecting, um, it's going to be an interesting turnout in what they do with it, especially in the matters of how they train and how they um, perform certain tasks to try to increase or develop one's user experience in dealing with their platform. Because eventually, not folks, but AI, getting it to be less dependent on humans in the just on the back end, is going to be the ultimate goal. The one of the principles in tech, is just like, how can we improve upon processes? And so, right now it's in the infant stages, and I say infant stages with air quotes, in the sense of, um, let's use YouTube for example, right? YouTube and Google, speak of the devil. So with your Gmail connected to your YouTube, all of your Google searches, all of your queries that you asked for, shut up Google, because I actually have Google on my phone. Even with the text to speech, right, and voice recognition, like as soon as you say something, Google is going to record it, even when you're not actively using it. Like I know that my phone right now, anything that I say, any keywords, it's recording it. Your phone being connected to your mobile device being connected to your email being connected to the platform that you use most frequently, whether it be social media via Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat. All of these corporations are all in line in regards to mining that data. They record that info with your habits, to try to build a profile and build an experience or a fantasy that you can uh, not escape. And this idea of, because Elon Musk talked about it prior, this idea of your phone being your second brain is something that is going to be a thing. And the fact that um, we've been conditioned to use our phones as our second mind, whether it be, I'll give an example, whether it be all the photos that you take of at family gatherings, if you're into food and taking snapshots of all your food, or you go out to hike and you see the mountain trails. So instead of you having to recall that from your biological mind, you have a technical device that records all of those instances, whether it be photo or video. And you know the tech companies have your location, they have your habits, they know when you sleep, they know when they know at a certain time you're gonna look up one particular item. All of these things are going to be taken into account to be able to get you to immerse yourself even more in the digital space. And so tying that back in line with what we've been discussing about proceeding with caution but proceeding, you're in a position where you're forced to continue to proceed forward, but the waters are treacherous. And so given that fact, being able to proceed forward is going to be the manner in how you proceed forward is going to be something that is imperative in regards to what you do in the future, culturally, tech wise, and financially and politically. And with the way that our society is developing and transpiring, those lines are getting blurred more and more and more. We just gave an example of the political being merged with the business and with the cultural being merged with the tech. And with that, I pass that to you, Brother Seventh.
You raise a great point about the digital memories versus the biological memories. And what I implore brothers to be careful with the reliance of digital memory, because that data can easily be altered. And as we know, with socialization, there may be room to rewrite some of the memories that you may have via your data, where you will start to have these instances where you have pictures of things that you don't have no recollection of taking pictures of, but these things were injected into your phone, and now you're believing that you were here or there when in actuality you never left home. So I implore brothers it's okay to take breaks away from the technology or use it in a responsible manner, not to become too reliant on the digital footprint unless it's for business. And with that, you know, how we close it up here. So if you haven't heard it anywhere else, you heard it here first in the dojo. To the 5 to 700 we have in the building today, we see all of you brothers, and we are proud of you. Continue to stay safe, remain vigilant, and until next time, oos.